Hi, Vinny.
Hi, Matt Rory. How are you?
How is
I'm doing great.
Good.
New York is my kind of town.
You know what's not my kind of town?
What?
Fort Joy.
Why did you say that?
Because I'm a goddamn prisoner or something. It's really kind of vaguely defined what this island.
Aren't we all?
Yeah. So this is Divinity Original Sin 2. We've both been playing a little bit of this, right? Here and there.
Yeah. I keep calling it Divinity 2, which is wrong. It is Divinity Original
Divine
Sin.
Divinity. I think they made a couple Divine Divinities, but then they made Divinity Original Sin a few years ago. This has been in early access for a while now. Got a full release maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, I've been playing it. It's obviously PC and
it's also on consoles, I believe, right?
Oh, is it? You know,
Pretty sure there's a PS4
wouldn't even have looked. I like it so far. I think it is the learning curve on it is steep,
brutal. In a lot of ways,
brutal.
What I've kind of discovered, I'm going to get into a fight here in a second, but what I've kind of discovered is that you really can't play this game. Starting off, there's a lot of stuff you're just going to miss. There's a lot of quests you can't even finish. Did you ever get to the arena of Fort Joy, like underneath?
So I got underneath Fort Joy and then found the dude who's dissecting people.
Yeah, that's a tough fight.
That wasn't a battle I could even approach.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, well, but I found a lot of battles like you were saying that I didn't need to sneak past this or not engage.
You can switch between. So one of the things is that there's 3 or 4 different difficulty levels, but there's classic is kind of what they encourage you to start off. I was getting destroyed on classic. I was a lot of fights. I don't think I made my party very well. There are ways to make party configurations that don't seem to be very effective. So I've been switching between Explorer mode, which is the really easy mode, and then Classic. I don't know if you knew this, but you can switch in the middle of a fight. You can even switch difficulty levels if something's really. I
haven't tried that.
Yeah, it's something you can do. You can also save in the middle of fights as well. Also, this is what I was talking about. This is one of the arena of Fort Joy. This lady named Thola, the Thorny One. You kind of do one big fight against 4 NPCs, and then here's the quest that I have. We fought in the arena and one of us became the champion. We should speak with Thola, the Thorny One, to see what's next.
You may yet be a warrior.
I'd like to challenge one of your comrades now. Change your mind. You'll find no one now. And then it just ends. There's no way for me to continue on this. I think it might be a co-op only quest, which I don't know why it would be in my solo game. But there's the kind of the mindset you have to go into is that there's a lot of stuff you probably just won't be able to do with whatever configuration part, and not a lot of stuff, but there's definitely going to be quests that you can't complete the way you want to, and you just kind of have to suck it up and get through them and kind of acknowledge that you won't be able to have the best outcome for everything that you want to do, which is tough for me to get my head around a little bit.
Right. I'm a very much a completionist when it comes to this stuff, and I don't like moving on until I've emptied out a zone, and even from my time with it being I'm gonna have to come back here when I know how to fight.
Yeah.
Or in the beginning of the game. So the setup for this game is, I didn't play much of Divinity Original Sin or enough to know the whole setup. But this game takes place much later, right?
I don't know much of the storyline kind of stuff. I never got through Divinity, the Original Sin one.
I believe it does, and basically the setup is they're taking all the sorcerers, folks that can use the source, which is magic. Basically, they're taking all the magicians and people who can use magic. They're muting them by putting collars on them, and then sending them off to this island. Because whenever somebody uses magic, and again, I'm just kind of shorthand here, it summons the bad things.
I don't think it's necessarily just magic. I think it's actually the sorcery thing, which is what you have these little icons under your thing. When you get the get the collar taken off, you can use these kind of really big powers, which summons in bad things, and you fight
the void walking, whatever they're called. So yeah, they source mute you or whatever, and I am actually in my playthrough still muted.
Yeah,
and I've put a decent amount of hours into it.
You have to go down into the so spoilers. Go down where I just sent you the arena, fight that fight, and then you'll be able to go to the armorer person and get that one taken off of your main character. So then you can actually start using some of the sorcery powers. Let me start this fight real quick. Go ahead.
Yeah, please do. I have died so many times.
Yeah, it's rough.
Reloaded.
I don't want to stick.
Go ahead.
Somebody shot my cat with a bow.
I don't realize how you picked this cat up. It just started following me around. Do you have the pet pal thing where you can talk to the pets?
I didn't realize I had it until at one point I just started, because you can main any of their characters and have them talk. So like I just happened to be on a different character, not my main character, and suddenly he was talking to a rat, and I was like, well, okay, I guess that's weird.
There are a lot of like weird quests and like quest information you can get from talking to animals. It's one of the things that's kind of, I would not play the game without the pet pal thing. But there's a mod you can get it for free because it is kind of a core part of the game. Anyways, I'm gonna start this fight real quick and show us some of the combat. This is a guy named Griff. He has been trying to smuggle in some drugs, and you found out who did it, but you didn't tell him. You got the drugs back, but you didn't tell who it was who did it. He's really mad at you. He's gonna try to attack you. So what I do like about the combat system, it's all turn-based. You can also do like tactical mode too if you want to. I've never really found this to be too useful. But one of the things I do like, and I'm going to show you this in a second, you see we have people over here, here, here. I think we have 4 or 5 different enemies, and we all started right in the same little grouping, which is not super ideal. Whose turn is it then? Oh, it's Fane's turn, okay. Have you played with a summoner at all?
I don't think so. You're using Fane, who's the necromancer. I am actually mainlining Fane.
Oh yeah,
is my main character, but I think I'm still source muted, so I don't know if I will be able to summon later.
Well, this is just summoning as a skill. I changed him to be a summoner where you can conjure incarnates and stuff like this. You can actually have additional kind of characters in your party, which is pretty handy, obviously.
That is super handy.
Yeah, it's really been kind of I hear that the damage output kind of falls off a little bit later on. I should have summoned that closer to her.
Yeah, because I think Fane by default is a rogue, and that's what I'm playing him as.
Yeah.
Like lockpicking and backstab.
I do like the fact that you can change all these characters as you find them. You can make them do stuff that they always have a preset class, but you can also change them to be whatever you kind of want. I haven't found that all the changeability is necessarily ideal. Like there are some things I would like to change these characters to be. Like I think Red Prince has like points in persuasion, even though I never use him to talk for anything, so I'd rather have those somewhere else, but you can't actually get that nitty gritty. You just kind of like tell them what kind of class they want to play, and then after that you're just kind of stuck with it or whatever they have. You can
it seems like the point system is pretty open-ended. I mean, it looked like they dumped in about like 3 or 4 points on each character to default. But again, I'm still super early on, so I'm not sure how much of an effect that has.
Yeah, it's just one of those nitpicky kind of things where I'd love to min-max the characters and totally rebuild them, while also keeping... From scratch, but also keeping their, I'd also like to keep their, personality and have their quests go through the game. Because you can make a full party of characters on your own if you'd like. Is he actually taking damage over time in this thing? I can't tell.
The fire, he should be, I thought.
Well, he shouldn't be because it's paused right now, at least for his turn.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I think every turn he'll take damage, right?
But it looks like their numbers coming off, which it shouldn't.
That would suck. That would be weird.
Maybe it's coming off the stool. It looks like it's burning, but it's weird that the stool is burning in the middle of my turn. I'm gonna heal myself real quick. So you can make a character. You can make as many characters as you want. You play with one character if you want, but I'd really like to have the ability to totally rewrite them from scratch while also being able to play through their quests and everything like that. Which I have not found.
So I guess that's a good point. They have like what, like 6 origin story characters, or 6 like pre-made, and then those ones are, they all have like fleshed out, different voices, fleshed out backstories, quests, or you can roll your own character with any combination of whatever undead, dwarf, dragon person.
Yeah, and figuring out the, I don't think that chloroform really did much. Figuring out the character creation system and figuring out what your character... One of my problems is that it's really difficult to know what your character is going to be capable of late in the game, because I don't think you can actually see all the skills until you find the skill books on like a merchant's inventory. And I kind of, at the beginning, you don't really know what all these... You get vague descriptions, but you can't see all the skills, as far as I know. And I would really have liked the ability to see kind of what the characters are going to be capable of further down the line, rather than just have... I want to go with this guy. I know the bad guy's up here still somewhere. This guy's still pretty.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the things I'm still getting used to with how open-ended is this versus how locked into character classes, because it seems like I've got the I really like the elf assassin, and so I've been using her, and elves, I guess, in this world, which again I didn't know until I jumped in here, can eat can eat people and then gain their memories. And so
they can eat,
which is great.
Yeah, they can eat body parts that you find. I've been restarting that and trying to eat some body parts, and I haven't really found anything crucial there yet. But I'm sure that'll come into play in some of the quests down the line. And so this is on Classic too. This is not even Tactician. I'm not getting murdered yet. I might be able to pull this out, but it's just kind of like you get a sense for how punitive this game can be. I know a couple of our mods are playing on Tactician. Apparently the Lone Wolf thing can be really, really powerful if you... she actually fucking healed herself too. That's not going to do anything. What I find in most of the fights, it really seems beneficial to try to focus fire down one character and go character by character.
Right.
But unfortunately, this one I've kind of been split up, and so
yeah, it's brutal.
It is. It's really tough. Like I said, you can switch between difficulty levels. But what I do find entertaining about the combat stuff is what I showed you there was starting this fight where they're all grouped up, and what you can do for a lot of these fights, and what I find really helpful actually is to get a sense for how the fight goes, what everybody's skills are, and everything like that, and then you can do this thing where you go ahead and detach her out, move her over next. If you know who's going to be in the fight later on, you can reload. It might sound scummy, but in order to be really effective in these fights, it is really handy to have this ability. I'm gonna make Fane. Shit.
Hey Rory.
Hey, what's up?
Can you sex up that skeleton?
I believe you can.
I heard you can sex up the skeleton.
Yeah, I haven't really tried. The problem with Fane is that he's undead, which means he doesn't get healed by healing. He gets healed by poison and healing.
On the upside, he's always got a boner.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there are romances for a lot of these characters. I haven't really got. I'm at the end of Act 1. I got to a fight where you can't do what I'm doing now. What I'm trying to do now is position my characters before the fight starts, so they're in an advantageous position. If I had a ranger or a bow and arrow character, I would definitely put them up like maybe here, which would be really great because they do more damage the higher up they are. Unfortunately, I didn't have any of those right now, which that's one of the reasons I'm restarting, because I really want a ranger class. They seem to really be brutal.
Can you go recruit the ranger guy, right?
Yeah, I think so. I haven't done it in this particular save. I was trying to figure out a save to show off this combat format.
I love all the characters so far. I think Fane is great.
Yeah.
I like that he always has to wear a mask or like people freak out. And I like that the interactions seem very tailored to which character you're using.
And now that I know that this character over here is going to try and blow up this oil barrel, I can move it. Oh, I guess I'm not supposed to touch that. And I lost a little attitude. I guess I can't actually do that yet. But now that I know she's going to try to blow it up, maybe I'll just stay away from it. Okay, so now they're grouped up. Let's go and do this.
Spare the indignation and hand it over. Good girl. Looks like everything.
I probably should just keep that stuff for myself and not give it back to him, since I'm going to fight it anyways. But I think.
What if you loot it off him?
Maybe I can. I'm not sure. Let's see.
Tell me who you found them on. Oh,
all right.
You must.
So we're going to start this fight again. Now that I've positioned my characters a little bit better. Now this guy's up here. He's not going to take as much damage. The characters are a little spread out, so they're not. If they do blow up, this little fire barrel won't be that big of a deal. I wish I could have done a fire barrel earlier, but now I also know that I'm going to put my summon right on top of this character, so it doesn't have to move a little bit to attack. It'll be able to get 2 attacks right off the bat. Go and do.
So it's probably worth mentioning that like the combat's a bit like Fallout-ish with action points and like your action point pool.
Yeah.
Like each character gets a certain amount of action points, and each moving or casting or melee will use that pool, and you kind of see it under your cursor.
Yeah, there's a little thing here, and that'll carry over between turns if you want to not use all your action points in one specific turn. It's kind of handy. This not ideal, because I don't think I can get around him to backstab, but let's see here. Yes, I can.
Yeah, you got it. Nice.
And the thing about it, I definitely do not feel like I'm super good at combat. There's a lot of stuff you can do with buffing. You can buff before combat starts and have the buffs available to you when you start a combat if you time it really well. I just don't feel like there are way better people at this game than I am, so I'm kind of going through. I wish there was a difficulty level between Explorer and Classic, because Classic feels like really punitive at times, and Explorer feels like I'm kind of being babied.
I think I started getting my feet under me in the combat on Classic. I mean, it took me a long time to get. All right, so I guess another system that's worth explaining that was a little new to me was the armor system.
Yeah, I was about to say that too.
Physical armor and magic armor, and if you have no armor, you're dead in the water.
You're gonna get wrecked.
You're gonna get wrecked.
And a lot of the skills that you have resisted by physical armor is what Battle Stomp says. This character has no physical armor; she only has magic armor. So I know this will. If I use this on Camp Boss Griff, he has 43 physical armor. It won't do shit. It'll do a little damage to his physical armor, but it won't have the knockdown effect that it does. If I use it on her, it will, because she doesn't have physical armor. And one of the things you have to keep in mind when you're doing this is that characters will regenerate armor. They'll use skills to get armor back. It can make a fights last a fair amount of time on some of these difficulty levels. I also have the ability to teleport too, which is pretty cool. This character has a teleportation gloves. You can get skills from equipment. And I'm going to use that right now on this dude. You can teleport your friends around if you want to, or you can teleport enemies around, which is kind of cool. You can get them like farther away from a fight, which I kind of like to do to kind of separate people out. It's really, really powerful to be able to do this kind of teleporting stuff in combat. You can put them in places where they can't get to you, or where they can't use their skills as well as they should be able to.
Also,
of course, you just warp right back.
It also lets you, if you have the opportunity, to flee the battle, because you can't flee when you're within range. But if you can warp some guys away, you can usually run away. And I don't think there's a penalty for fleeing.
I haven't really tried to flee too much. I've kind of been just kind of getting wrecked on a lot of stuff. And if I do, I kind of reload from before the fight begins and try over. So this character has decaying touches. Okay, good. So that will work on her. Go ahead and do that.
Yeah, so the physical armor and the magic armor is really interesting, because you also want to make sure that or at least when I've been playing it, tried to min-max the kind of damage I'm doing of not spreading out magic attacks and physical attacks, and then you're just, instead of 40 hit points or armor points, you're chewing down 80.
Yeah.
And like that's, which also sometimes is lame, because it makes my magic users useless in a fight when I've decided to go physical.
Yeah, it's kind of, there's also, different characters, different kinds of, resistances. Like this character doesn't have much, you have to really match your damage to the target that you want to take down. And sometimes targets are going to be really, really difficult to get by. So you see how much better this combat is going so far, just because I had a little positioning at the beginning of the fight. I really, really am doing a lot better in terms of my character's health and everything else. Let's see, this guy has magic.
But as I've kind of come to get a better understanding of the systems, I've enjoyed it a lot more. It seems like there's a lot of depth there, actually, as I've kind of figured out, like, okay, now I understand how to maybe more efficiently attack people, or combo spells, or, like you said, get positioning and
definitely.
People.
I don't think I had a really tough time enjoying the game when I first started out. I didn't feel like I knew what I was doing. I didn't feel like the combat was very fun, because I kept on getting just slaughtered by everybody. And then after a few hours, I kind of restarted the game, and now I did that again for the third time. Just last night, I started trying to figure out how. I would definitely recommend like reading up on a get a character build guide or some kind of recommended build thing, because that just seems like it's all, I wouldn't say necessary, but it definitely seems like if you want to play on Classic, or let alone goddamn Tactician, I don't know how people do Tactician. I've heard people are trying it out, but it's definitely, even Classic is just a hair more challenging than I really like, which I realize is kind of, I definitely feel like it's my fault for not being good enough. Not that the game is being overly, the game is very difficult, but I don't feel it's unfairly difficult. If that makes sense.
I would also recommend folks, and I did this too, like after a few hours, I looked up like some getting started guides, like, okay, here's what you should do to, like, when it took me a really long time to get a weapon and like a piece of armor, and to the point where I was like, I can't fight anybody because I'm just getting wrecked. Because when you don't have any armor, people can knock you down, or you're susceptible to all the status effects. And it took me a long time, so I was like, I must be missing something, like an armory or the sword shop. and turns out I wasn't. It's just that stuff's hard to come by very early on.
You get a lot of. There is a crap load of equipment in this game. Maybe I'll load up a save from later on in a bit. But you start finding one of my definite problems with the game is the inventory management and vendor stuff. Like it's very difficult sometimes to find. Let's see how far along this guy is. The good thing I like about this summoner is that you can summon as many of these totems as you want. You can. I think they'll fade away after a few turns. But if you want to just have free damage, you can start, and it'll take on the attribute of whatever element you cast it on, so it'll start actually doing fire damage when I'm just going to see if I can get this guy from over here.
I think definitely worth mentioning, at least what I have found so far, is I think the writing in this game is spectacular.
It's very good.
I found all the characters to be fun and interesting and dynamic, and again, I'm playing the Bone Man, and his stuff is just. I found him to be super fun to play as because he just wants to, rip faces off people and doesn't really care that much about the rest of the world.
He's also So, in fairness to full disclosure, this was partially written by an old coworker of ours, Kevin Baynard. Old GameSpot hand, and also I used to work with Chris Avalone, who I know did writing on it as well. The writing's really good. There are some really tough decisions you have to make with some of these quests and everything like that. I would say it's a little too whimsical for my taste. Like some of the humor, it feels like they try to get a lot of humor in, like item descriptions and stuff like that. I kind of prefer it if it was a little more serious,
solemn.
But that's the matter of personal taste. It's not.
I also think that's a Divinity thing, from what I understand.
Yeah.
From like the bit I've played of the Divinity games over the years, is they're cheeky.
Yeah, a little bit. It also it's kind of a cliche story. Like you're the child of divinity, and you have to kind of defeat the void. Is apparently the big bad guy in this game. So it's tropish in its use of fantasy, but it's hard to really be too. So that was the end of that fight. You saw how much easier it was for me to go through that when I had positioning and knowing what characters are going to do what. It's definitely one of these kind of games where if you feel like you should walk into every fight and have a easy time of it, that's not going to be the kind of game for you.
I feel like you're so good at this, and I feel like when you're doing this, it's reminding me of you giving me demos for like Neverwinter. Like, all right, I'm gonna load up another save here. This time you're gonna see I'm gonna spread everybody out. A lot of choices you can make.
Yeah, it's we haven't even really gotten into the conversation stuff very much, or the co-op. You and I tried to play a little bit of co-op. So I just beat that dude. He had this elf imprisoned, which is what kind of the goal was here, and I'm gonna get his keys and everything. And you'll find usually a lot of good stuff on people.
I should say I did this completely differently and just freed or got the elf out and was like best buds with that guy.
Oh yeah. Well, you can. Griff too.
Yeah.
Well, now I can just let him out, and he'll go off, and you'll get a bunch of experience in this. There's a weird elf lady on this island who is some kind of cult leader who you have to.
Oh, the one who's blind.
I think so. I'm not. I kind of get the names mixed up over time. But the conversation stuff, there's a lot of different options in terms of what you can do. All of your one of the confusing things that all your characters can have different conversation skills. I normally want my main character to be the one talking, but you can have anybody talk to anybody, and they will take over as the conversator, or whatever the word is, which is really important for stuff like bartering, because some characters are better at bartering, and that's the character that you want to talk to all the merchants and sell your stuff, because you'll get more gold for it.
I definitely found it a bit overwhelming at first, but then came to like kind of enjoy it in the sense that I've got an undead character. I want that character to talk to another undead person. Or I've got an elf. I'd like to see the reaction. I guess is another good tip too. What is it? Left alt brings up all the items on the ground.
The one thing
pretty helpful.
It's pretty helpful. I also miss the fact that there's no container option. Like there's nothing to highlight all the containers as far as I can tell. So if there's crates over here, you can easily kind of miss this unless you really do a lot of pixel. What the fuck? Oh, who's this dick? I think she was part of Griff's crew. I think there might have been some people up gambling up at a table over here that I might have missed, who I think are part of Griff's crew, and now she might be a little pissed at me for killing them all. I didn't quite see any dialogue there, but I don't think I can quite get to her. But yeah, it's my again my other problem is that one of my problems is that you wind up with a lot of shit in your inventory. Figuring out what you can sell safely and what you can't sell is kind of tough to do. There's also, I think there should just be like a vendor trash option.
Yes.
To have like get rid of anything you don't want. But there's a lot of crafting too. I haven't really fooled around a huge amount with the crafting. But there is a lot of stuff you can do with like food recipes and stuff like that. You'll find a lot of that if you go through and read books. There's a lot of books to read. Nothing quite as long as you'll find in like a Skyrim or something like that. But
so the thing I didn't understand about the books was, does it matter which character you have selected when you read the book?
I think for which what purpose? Like
to gain a skill. Like if you're gonna like oh okay, like you learned how to craft whatever. Like do you get that as a general party thing?
I think it goes into your general party thing. I'm not 100% sure, but I could be wrong. But I'm pretty sure.
The lady who can eat the body parts. And so like I've gained skills, like spells and skills from eating body parts, but like I definitely have to make sure I'm on the right person because anybody can eat somebody's hand.
Oh, okay. Yeah. There's a difference between eat and consume in that particular case, which is kind of confusing.
Yeah. So otherwise, it's just a gross thing aside from the learning experience.
Yeah, it's very that I haven't, like I said, I haven't really fooled around too much with my elf character. I didn't have one on this particular playthrough. Wow, that's interesting. It's got 2 free turns.
I think it's an amazing return to form for these kind of classic RPGs. Like,
yeah,
it's got that feel.
I didn't get very far into Pillars or Torment or Tyranny. There have been a lot of these style games coming out, kickstarted, a lot of Kickstarter stuff. This is definitely one of the better ones of the recent couple years. I don't know if I'm gonna play through the entire thing. It hasn't compelled me or enthralled me like it has definitely some other people have been. High praise for this game around the web, which is fine.
Yeah.
I don't know if I necessarily am going to play through the entire thing in. I hear it's like 80 hours or something like that.
Oh wow!
So if you beat the arena downstairs, you can get her to take off
the collars.
There's only one thing.
She'll only do the one for your main character, as far as I know, the hero character who became the one. And now I can cast Dome of Protection. You'll have some special source skills that can only be done, but I need to get a source point, which I don't have now. The problem is if I do that thing now, these guys will immediately come over and like arrest you.
Prefer a cage to.
You can either fight or go quietly. I think at this point I got thrown in jail and I had no idea how to get out of here. I'm sure there is a way, but I kept on doing like pixel hunting. I can't pick the lock. Maybe I think my other characters can come down and get me out.
Can you just right click on it and break the door?
I don't have, I think I can, but I think it has like, I can't actually see, it's not popping up a health bar, so I think it's unbreakable.
Oh.
I think I have to get my other characters to come down and let me out.
Okay. Yeah, that's another interesting thing here. Like, it was weird. I broke a bunch of doors. That was like, this is kind of cool. But the other interesting thing is that you can have your party members just spread out like across the world. And
you totally can.
Some are in fights, some aren't.
Yep. I think that's mostly the shell of the co-op game that they've built around. Like I said, we tried a little bit of co-op. It is really not my thing. I don't particularly care for co-op at all. I don't think I would play this game in co-op, but it's cool that they have the option for people who want to do that. You can have a full 4-person party if you want.
I think you really need to be invested with your party, like in a way that's like, okay, we're all in, almost like you're doing like a Dungeons and Dragons, or you're having like a role playing session, a board game session, because everybody needs to be in on it. Otherwise, if somebody's just running through, clicking through all the text and making bad choices, is not super fun. Like you and I kind of sped through that beginning boat part, and I was like, well, listen, I'm just gonna let the boat sink. We're moving on.
Yeah, I don't.
And then you were just on board with that.
I don't like waiting for other people to do stuff. Is my big thing. I don't like people, like if I have to wait in a cave for somebody to loot all the chests to go on. That kind of stuff really frustrates me. So there are a lot of people who really do like co-op a lot, and this game seems like a pretty good one for people who are into that kind of thing. I definitely am not. But yeah,
cool, it's there.
I'm trying to think that there's anything else I wanted to cover. Kind of just did one
you should
fight.
show the like character stuff.
Sure.
The like the progression and the skills stuff, because it's.
You mean like
there's a
go a little later on for this same party?
No. Just like hit like K or whatever it is.
Oh, sure. Well, this is again, this is pretty early on in the game. These are my available skills. You have memory slots. You can do a fair amount of diversification. Like every character needs to have at least like 2 kind of things that they're going for. You can do like ranged attack and School of Magic. There's a bunch of different options there that you can pick and choose. Oh, geez.
Yeah, so it seems to me like they're not locked in.
They're not
right away,
which is good. Definitely.
And then what's the in the inventory screen, right? Like all your stuff here where you get your upgrade points.
You have all this kind of, you have a billion different skills you can do. There's warfare. This character is mostly like single-handed and warfare. It's easier for spellcasters because they don't have to have any points in weapons. They can get a little more into the skills. But there's a lot of interesting stuff in here too. I hear Lucky Charm is really powerful. If you get a lot
really?
of this.
I kind of skipped it all.
I skipped it too, but apparently if you get like 6 or 7 points, you start finding like really good equipment, a lot of it too.
Oh, that's cool.
I want to do more telekinesis stuff, which is pretty really handy to have. And the ability to warp stuff around seems really, really powerful too. I haven't done much sneaking or thievery either. You can pickpocket people, but they seem to realize that really quickly, and they'll also search you, and then there'll almost always be a fight. So I haven't really done a huge amount of that.
I've done some lock picking because I'm the rogue, but like, and then there are like these Fallout-ish perks.
Mm-hmm. There's tags, which are mostly conversation stuff, and then there are like talents. So you get 2 extra action points after dealing a killing blow. Most of these are pretty small, but I hear. Go ahead.
I was gonna say all skilled up would seem like a no-brainer to me.
Definitely.
It's all at the top.
Definitely. So I think you can actually get this. I want to say I don't think you can get it more than once, but it definitely seems to be one of the ones that is really powerful. Some of these just seem like I don't. What's that? Leech is standing in blood. You'll get healed when you're standing in blood, which seems like there seems like there's one that is like a warfare polymorph, because polymorph, a lot of the polymorph skills are really close range, and you're already going to be in close range for when you're sword and shielding. It seems like a good. There's a lot of those kind of combinations that I haven't really looked into a huge amount yet. But yeah, there's a lot of different ways to build your character, and it's I want to really go back and take a look at all the stuff and get some good builds worked out and figure out some more before I decide if I want to move on. I got really frustrated at the end of the Act 1. There's a big fight on a ship where you can't do any positioning, and you have to protect an NPC, and I was just getting railed every time I tried it, just absolutely destroyed. And then I realized that I had reloaded a save, and it was on Classic mode and not Explorer. I thought I was getting destroyed on Explorer mode, which is really super frustrating, but Explorer is pretty, as long as you have characters with skills, you're probably going to be okay on Explorer mode for most of these fights, which is nice. I got pretty frustrated with the difficulty in the first game too, and I was definitely hitting a wall on some of these fights. And I'm sure people in the comments are gonna say it's it's definitely my fault. I will totally go ahead and say that I don't play optimally, and I want to get better at it. But yeah, it's can be frustrating from time to time.
For sure, it's at least novel enough for me, and I've played a lot of RPGs, and especially Western RPGs, where there's enough novelty in it for me to be like, this learning curve, I've got to get used to this. There's a decent amount going on here.
There's just
do you want to show?
Go ahead.
Do you want to show the just the top of the character selection stuff, and then, or is there any more inside the game you want to show?
How do you mean top of the main menu, like create a character?
Yeah, like I think that stuff is kind of interesting with the pre-made guys and stuff. Jason, what do you think? You gonna play this?
Only if I can bone that skeleton.
You can. I've kind of gotten, over the years, away from the romance angles of these games. I co-wrote...
I still need it in my life. I've been married 10 years. I gotta get my romance somewhere.
I co-wrote the official strategy guide for the Throne of Baal expansion to Baldur's Gate 2. And it was a very difficult game to figure out all the twists and turns and romance stuff, and I don't think we were as thorough as we could have been. This is the print strategy guide too, and I think people on Amazon have left a bunch of reviews saying they couldn't figure out how to have sex with the character from the strategy guide, and they were pretty mad about it.
So you just got a chip on your shoulder for all romance.
Yeah, romance stuff. I don't. I'm very much a. I wouldn't say power gamer, but I definitely think in terms, not as role playing, I definitely think mostly in terms of how I can get the most experience points and make my characters most powerful in these kind of games, which is sometimes difficult to figure out, especially with a system like this. Like, this is kind of all the info you really get when you're making a character. You get these little build presets, but you kind of get a few of the core skills. But I really want in this kind of I don't know this system very well from the first game. I didn't get very far in Divinity Original Sin. I know the basics of it, but I really want to know what these characters are going to be able to do late in the game to figure out what I want to build to. It is pretty freeform. There is a point where you can respec at the end of Act 1, which is nice, but then it just kind of feels like in the early game, I hear it gets a little easier in Act 2 when you have a lot more skills available to you. But it definitely, the character creation stuff, I definitely feel a little frustrated by because I don't really know what all these things are going to be able to do late in the game.
So this definitely intimidated me to the point where if you just click on where like the custom dwarf like to the right, I just went over until they had the
that's one thing I didn't
presets.
even realize until last night. There's a bunch of customs stuff you can do, but I didn't realize you can actually play as these characters.
Yeah,
I didn't click this far enough along.
One of them.
So yeah, you can actually have 4 origin characters, and these are the people with storylines and plots and everything like that. If you want to make one of these characters your main character, that will totally work. It's kind of that's a really cool touch.
Yeah, and like it's neat having them be my main. So I just did feign that they had a cool story.
Pow!
Practicing magic.
All my life, I've been a performer, a musician.
That's kind of neat. I actually didn't realize you could listen to their origin stories either.
Yeah, it's like their audition for their reality TV show.
Yeah, there's just a huge amount of content in this game too. There's a lot of quests. Let me see if I can just load real quick what I did at the end. I'm not gonna play the actual fight, but I got to the end of Act 1, and I'm gonna try and see if I can right about here. Oops, don't look at that. This is about the end of Act 1. I'm going to show you my quest log from actually, if you want no absolute spoilers, don't look at this part of I'm going to show you the quest log. I'm going to show you how much stuff I just had to end. I couldn't figure out how to finish it. I can't figure out how to progress the quest. The quest log is not great. It won't always tell you what is the next step in terms of this stuff.
Yes.
All these quests are still open for me. I basically gave up on most of them and just kind of decided to end the act. I covered a huge amount of ground. I didn't feel like I don't feel perturbed too much by that, by the fact that I had to leave these behind. But if you are an OCD completionist kind of person, this is going to be a little frustrating. I think it doesn't really tell you what the next steps are in quests. You kind of have to suss it out your own.
The quest like next steps and the quest tracking I found to be lacking.
Yeah.
Like just even tracking quests on a map, and maybe I'm just missing something, but I always wound up having to go to the main map and then hover over different icons to see exactly which is the thing I wanted to go to.
Yeah, this is kind of the thing if you really want to be a completionist. Oh, this is cool. Eventually you can, if you put enough points in Summoner, you start getting really big. This guy really pounds through armor too. It's really interesting. The skill just changed on its own as I put more points into Summoner. And there's a huge range of skills and powers and everything like that to fool around with. So this is really a good sandboxy game. And I actually do like, you can infuse them with more power too. The Summoner stuff is really interesting. I might
have to pick some of those skills up.
Yeah, the summoning stuff is really fun. I found it to be really handy on classic difficulty because you get like a couple of extra characters that the enemies will target and take some pressure off of your own people. Yeah, this stuff is really dope. I was really surprised. I think I went from like 0.5 to 0.6 in summoning, and all of a sudden this dude started popping out. I was like, whoa, cool.
It's kind of awesome.
Yeah, there's a lot of really fun stuff to like about this game. There's a few quibbles that I have that have definitely impacted, some of the enjoyment, but overall it's definitely a great game. I think I'm going to try and play through Act 1 again with a more custom-made party and see if I want to go on from there. But yeah, it's if you're into this kind of game, this kind of game is here, and it's definitely a lot of content and a lot of stuff to go through.
Very cool. Well, thanks, you guys.
Thanks, Vinny.
You got it.